Nigel Evans and his management team have over 30 years of experience in both solicitors and barristers. Nigel is one of the founders of Aptum Legal, and he's my guest in this business talk. You want to hear about his experience starting a business and managing a law firm? Stay tuned and watch this business talk. Hi Nigel, thank you so much for being our guest in this business talk.
Thanks Silvano, hi.
And thank you for sharing your insights with us.
Right.
So Nigel, since you were a kid, you wanted to become a lawyer or working in the law field, right?
Yes. Well, maybe not since I was a kid, but it's certainly something I've been keen on for a long time. In fact, it wasn't the first thing I did. I did other things before I went into the law.
So what was it that you did?
So a couple of things. I started out in, my first degree was in a politics major. So I worked in government and I worked a little bit in politics. I started off completely different to the law, although of course because it was politics it was always a marriage between that and the legal issues. So I went down that path, and then I found myself working in corporates doing something completely different. I worked in HR with large corporates here and in London, and it was only then that I went, oh, I think I need to do something different, and that's when I went and found the law.
So this was basically the motivation to go into law, and when did you thought, oh, now I'm ready to become independent and start my own business?
Yeah, so I did that actually quite some time ago. So what I did when my journey in the law was from a normal path. I was an article clerk with a big law firm. I became a solicitor, and then very early on I decided that the independence was an important thing for me. So I actually then became a barrister. Now, as a barrister, it's effectively your own business. You're completely independent. It's like having your own business, but it's different in the sense that you can't grow it with other people. You have to be on your own. Right. So I made the decision to be independent and on my own a long time ago, but this more recent decision was a decision to grow a business with other people, and that's the decision I've recently taken.
So it was a bigger step then to do this, because it's not something simple to start a business in the law industry, as I can hear. Yeah,
no, that's right. It was a reasonably big step. And in some ways it was moving from a very different role. So the role of a barrister and the role of solicitor, there are distinct differences between the two. And for me it was not only making this move to take on greater risk and be involved with other people and take on a much bigger enterprise, but there was also the risk associated with moving into a different space. Not an entirely different space, obviously, but different nonetheless. So yeah, it was a big move and an exciting one.
And now you run this business with other partners, and it is an interesting name that you choose for your business. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the name and also what services you provide.
So Aptum is effectively, it's Latin for adapt, to adapt. So when we set out to name our business, and we thought very hard about the kind of business that we wanted to create, and the notion of adapting to changing times was really important to us. We wanted to show that we were different to the way in which mainstream legal services were being provided, mainstream litigation services in particular. So Aptum for us captured that, was this sense that we will be adaptable. We won't have fixed notions, we won't be conservative, but nor will we be reckless. We're not going to do something that's radically different and completely left field. It's about doing something more effectively. So for us it was the idea that we will continue to grow and continue to adapt and continue to adopt ideas, methodologies, technologies from outside of the law. So that's the name, that's where it comes from. What we do, we're very specialist lawyers. So we deal only with commercial disputes. So we do disputes litigation. So we don't profess to be everything to everyone. We don't do traditional corporate front-end legal work. We don't do transaction documents. We don't do leases. We don't do agreements. We do disputes. So, and we tend to do disputes in three distinct areas. The first is just a sort of general commercial disputes, and that's the businesses falling out with their suppliers and businesses falling out with the people they're dealing with. We deal with insolvency-related disputes. So in particular, we have a strong client base in the insolvency industry, so when business goes bad. And we have a unique expertise in tax disputes. So we also deal with clients who are experiencing difficulties effectively with their tax. So disputes involving taxpayers and the tax office.
So I can hear you have a big commercial clientele. How big or how important is B2B networking for you to generate some new customers?
Yeah, it's really important. I mean, our business is a B2B business, and it's particularly important for us because of the nature of our specialty. So because we are independent disputes firm, independent litigators, we're different from the rest of the legal market, in which most law firms will have a commercial arm, and then their clients get into trouble, and then that work will then go to their litigation department. So they don't rely as much on the other networks, particularly other referral networks. Now, for us, that's really critical to what we do, and indeed we've set ourselves up to be that alternative for firms who are looking for that kind of specialist advice for their clients. So our B2B networks are really important, both from finding and attracting end clients, but in particular finding people who we will collaborate and work with on their own client basis.
Collaboration is something that interests me as well about how you do business, in particular in regards to complementors. Complementors are the companies that add value to your services that you offer. Do you currently work with a complementor?
Yeah, well, we have a couple of relationships that I think would fall into that kind of description. So we work with other law firms who have a different specialty, and when they take our specialty and theirs combined, we provide a complete solution to a particular client. So one example of that is we deal with and work with a lot of, not a lot, but a few select family law firms. And that's an interesting environment in which it requires a particular skill set and a particular expertise to deal with the issues that come from divorce and family breakdown. But within those disputes, there is often a very difficult and complex commercial arguments. And we effectively collaborate and partner with family law firms to provide that commercial expertise when that's needed. And so we can help the family law firm help its client resolve the marital dispute, and at the same time navigate and resolve some of the complex commercial issues that are attached to that dispute.
That's brilliant. So you are working with complementors, but yes, you also provide service as a complementer, so a really good example of collaborating
Absolutely.
with other businesses.
Yes.
And how much need or how much value do you see in professional complementors? On Proactive Hub, we differentiate between company complementors, yes, and professional ones. Yes. The professional ones are individuals with certain management skills, functional skills, and I understand every startup probably doesn't always have all the skills needed to run a business. What do you think? How valuable is it to also find professional complementors?
Yeah, look, it's extremely valuable. And an example in our space, we are subject matter experts, so we're really good at the law. But that doesn't mean we're good at business, and it doesn't mean that there are, and what it means, of course, is there are so many other parts of delivering out really good legal services that requires a whole range of other disciplines. a whole range of other expertise that that we don't have. So we've found ourselves wanting to call on marketing professionals, for example, marketing and branding professionals, and we have worked with individuals and companies in that space. The notion of having the kind of professional who can be independent and agile enough to come in and assist is a wonderful thing, and it's a critical part of our business planning. We see Aptum's growth as always being one in which we will be collaborating with professionals and other businesses to both improve the way which we deliver legal services, but also to expand our offering.
What recommendation or suggestions can you give to other entrepreneurs, regardless of what industry they work in?
Yeah, that's hard because I'm still learning. I mean, and the obvious one I assume most people would say is just give it a go. Just be prepared to back yourself and have confidence in your expertise and your ability to do something well. Back that. And I think that probably the most valuable thing that I've picked up in the journey so far is a willingness to be open with other people, to share your experience with other people like yourself, to sit down, to have these conversations, to talk to other business owners, to talk to people who can complement the services you're providing, even competitors and people who might find themselves in a competitive space, and just be open to those conversations. The law can be a really fraternal sort of environment. It can be nice. It can be a really supportive environment. It's not always that way, of course, but it can be. And so I think my advice would be that you be open about sharing your experiences, and be open and candid about the kinds of things you're wanting to do. It's not like you're hiding trade secrets. You're going to have to tell the world about what you want to do anyway, so you may as well be talking about it. I think that's probably the best advice I could give at the moment. Be open to it and try. I think one of the other bit of advice would be really good at time management, which is something I'm not particularly good at the moment.
What was in particular a big challenge that you had to overcome in these couple of years that you have now managed the business?
I think the biggest challenge that we've experienced is we're trying to cut through with a simple message that's new and a little bit different in an environment that is very conservative. So I think the biggest challenge for us is that cut-through message. Are people really hearing and understanding exactly what it is that we're trying to achieve? Or are they looking at us with the same lens that they look at every other lawyer? And if they are, how do we get them to change the lens? How do we get them to really open their minds and think a little bit differently about what it is that we're trying to do? And how do we shift that mindset? How do we stop them thinking about the way in which lawyers have always done things? How do we stop them thinking about the traditional ways in which commercial disputes and the traditional path and the traditional ways in which they've been managed and dealt with? How do we get them to think openly about, well, I'm open to some differences here and I'm willing to trust that message? That's by far our biggest challenge. And maybe it's a challenge for us because of the nature of the industry. It's a very, very conservative industry. It's an industry that is reluctant to change, and that means that there's a trepidation from the client base as well. I think they go hand in hand. So, but we're getting there. We're getting there. The message is getting through. It's getting through. So, but it's a big challenge. It's a big challenge.
Now, what were the highlights that you experienced over the years?
Yeah. So the highlights with Aptum and going out and starting it is absolutely working on a goal with a group of people, like getting together a group of motivated people. We've got a great team, fantastic team. I've got great partners, and that's a wonderful experience. And indeed, that was one of the biggest drivers for Aptum, because where I was previously as a barrister, I was an island. I was on my own, and the big motivation behind wanting to be involved in, create, develop Aptum was about that. So the highlights for me is that you're facing these kinds of challenges, but you're doing it with others.
Right.
That's cool. That's great. And it's great to watch people get excited when you have the wins, to work hard when you're facing the difficulties, and to know that you're around some really talented and interesting and fun people, and you're doing it together. So that absolutely is the highlight, I think.
Thank you so much for being a guest of this business talk. Really appreciate that you shared all your insights and knowledge with us, and also with our audience. Yeah,
thanks so much, Silvano. We're a great fan of Proactive Hub. We think it's a fantastic idea, so it's great to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Nigel is a member of our Business Hub. If you want to hear more about Aptum Legal, get in touch with Nigel on proactivehub.com. This was another business talk provided by Proactive Hub. My name is Silvano. Thank you for watching.